Welcome to Wednesday Q&A, where you ask the questions and we answer. I am joined, as always, by my lovely and fearless co-host, Kristen Williams.
Hey, Laura. Hey, everybody. So glad to be here. Let's
Yay.
do it.
So,
Do
yeah,
you want to
you
start
start
off?
us off.
All right. So, our friend Fabi, whose Instagram is Yoga Room, Ruum, says, I don't have problems with my knees, but every time I come down from plank into chaturanga and turn my toes, and she's talking about going into upward facing dog, my knees are popping. It's mainly like my kneecap tries to come into the right position. Any thoughts? Thank you. So she did send me a video, and it was from the side, which was, and in yoga pants. So there really wasn't much to see by way of what might be happening at the knees. There wasn't anything unusual at the foot. So what is your first thought with that one, Laura?
I have heard of that before. I've even actually literally audibly heard of that when people are doing that. And so, when you come into up dog, for those who aren't familiar with it, it's essentially like a cobra, but you're off the ground and you're on the tops of the feet. The ankles are in plantar flexion. So you're getting this very long fascial stretch on that anterior side of the leg. And my thought is that when you extend the knees and you're on in that plantar flexion, and then you're trying to hold the bowl of the pelvis steady, you're really getting a lot of kind of an extension feeling in that whole front line. And so I would say if it's clicking or making noise and there's no pain, that's always, what we're aiming for. I would just think there's some kind of fascial noise that's happening, and it's getting realigned in whatever, and that could be like micro amount, or it could just be pulling on it and it's making a little bit of a noise, because that's not a movement that we do in daily life very much at all, where we have that knee extended, hip extended, and ankle extended. That's actually called triple extension. It's the opposite of the triple flexion. So that would be my gut, is that if it doesn't hurt and that's just happening, it's probably just a counter move to how you're mostly being in life, which is, like many people, flex at the hip, flex at the knee.
Yeah, and that's my thought too. Especially whenever people say something's popping but there's no pain, I'm much less inclined to uh, worry about it. Now, she does report feeling like the kneecap is shifting. So, she could very well be having, she might just have a little bit, I don't want to call it instability, but hypermobility, and very common in females especially. You know, I would also be curious, and I did ask her to send me a video from like behind so we could see what are her feet doing? Are her legs too close together? So then she's getting that IT band pull when she lifts up and it pulls that out. So, thinking about where if she brings her feet a little further apart, would that help? If we call that sickling, in dance, are her toes turned in? So is she getting a funny pull? Same thing what you're saying, that front fascial line is getting a pull on it that is affecting that kneecap. It sits in a groove of your femur and it really just wants to slide superior and inferior. When we start getting that medial lateral slippage, it's an indication that something weird is going on, usually above or below. And especially with that IT band, that lateral tightness. I know for me, like maybe not up dog per se, but locust, my legs do not, I remember the big cue, bring your legs together. That felt terrible because it was just too much tension across that anterior line, my IT band. It felt like my kneecaps wanted to, go boing out to the side. So I just keep my legs nice in line with my hips. So she did not get a chance to send me that video, but that would have been my one thing that I would be looking for.
I agree. I totally agree that we don't want instability in the knee if there's like a real slippage. And also the angle of the femur to the knee with women, that is a bigger angle. And in some women, it's even, to the point where it does lend itself to some knee instability. So watching how far in her knees are compared to her hips, in addition to, like you said, where her feet are and compared to the hips. So once those structures are, in a more optimal alignment, if that was the issue, if that clicking still happens, that just, again, might be that adjustment.
Yep.
So get back to us on that, Fabi. This is from Deborah Casserer. Hope all is well. I have a Wednesday podcast question. While practicing meditation, my mid back hurts really bad, specifically the space under the shoulder blades near the upper ribs. Which of your classes online do you suggest I try to strengthen the section of the back? I'm guessing my sitting all day at work as a CPA contributes to my poor posture and back aches while meditating.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think definitely it's funny especially knowing she's a CPA. I'm glad she gave us that background information because if I'm not sitting at my computer all day, I can go throughout, I mean, days, weeks, months with never feeling a thing between my back. If I go and sit at my computer all day long, I'll get the weirdest, like numbness, tingling sensation. She's complaining of it, right there, kind of below the shoulder blades. And then I also wonder, is she then meditating in a seated position? So my first
probably.
recommendation, yes, probably because that's what everybody does. That's the way we think we should meditate, like in lotus pose or something, which let that go. My first recommendation for you would be meditate in another position because you're spending all day there anyway. Go for a walk and meditate. Or lie down and meditate. That's my favorite way. And I'm not a big meditator, but when I do, I like to be almost in a shavasana and just because then I can really just settle in and listen to my breath and focus because I too get distracted by sensations in my trunk from holding that seated position. Now does tell me like maybe Kristen, you need to do that more. But when I'm meditating, my focus is elsewhere. I'm trying to get out of my brain versus letting those little things niggle at me. What about you, Laura?
Yeah, I agree. I think that changing positions when you're meditating, that you're not just doing the same thing you've been doing all day. And yeah, and know that meditation is the attempt to just clear the clutter from the brain. So if you're getting these distractions, that the sensations of your body, I know some meditation teachers tell you to not get strayed or pulled away from those distractions. But I do think it's like, we have so much distractions already. Let's just help ourselves clear them away. So that would be my first thing. And then in answer to your question about, classes on our LYT daily, I mean, pretty much any class is going to get you more balanced, but we have a filter where you can look up something for the shoulders, the T-spine. It sounds like the T-spine is an area, that's your thoracic spine. That's an area that might need some extra love. And because if you're rounding at your desk, your shoulders are probably coming forward and your head's moving forward. And then that strain, it's always like, I always say it's like reins, like the reins on a horse or something that's trying to pull you back into a more stacked alignment because that's less of a burden on your body, on the tissues and the muscles and the fascia. So really working toward getting that T-spine more aligned and getting the strength in those back muscles, in the scapular muscles, but also in the muscles that run up and down the spine. They tend to be really rigid, but they don't necessarily be strong. And then working on your neutral pelvis, your hips. So everything we do, but I would say take a look at the postural series and then just type in thoracic spine or shoulders to kind of hit those areas a little bit more for strengthening and alignment.
Yeah, I just actually pulled it up and we have it. If you look, our filters are now available to you, like right there in your face. And so if you look under category, and you kind of got to scroll down, but it says it's called upper back. So we have upper back, and then I would also do some of the fascia. Would be a good one too. Fascia, stretch, and upper back would be three good sources of, places to choose from on the LYT Daily.
I agree. So Deborah, I hope that helps you and follow up with us. Let us know if you've tried one of those and it helps. All right, let's go to another one. We've got a bunch in here. Okay, this is from Latin Ann, and she said, I would love to know the impact of overactive TFL. This would be super interesting.
Well, so for most people who don't know what the TFL is, that stands for tensor fascia lata. It is a muscle in the side of your hip, side and front. It's one of my favorite muscles because I was a sprinter in high school and college, and This was a muscle when sprinters started wearing, female sprinters especially started wearing more of like the bloomers, the the underwear more looking type of thing. It was this muscle that just pops out at you. It looks
It's
like a little
gorgeous.
bubble. Oh,
Yeah,
I love it.
gorgeous.
It's
Yeah.
just so beautiful. And so what it is it's the top of your IT band. It's actually the muscle that the IT band we consider the tendon. Now the IT band has a greater role than just being the tendon of the tensor fasciae lata, but it's right there at the top. And so the main role of that muscle is to flex and abduct the leg. So it's huge. You can understand why would a sprinter have a big, because they're powering those legs. It's it is attached to the IT band, which the IT band has all the muscles of the leg that are basically dragging that leg forward. We're biped, we're bipedal. So we've got this beautiful long piece of connective tissue, this tendon, for lack of a better term, that is pulling the leg forward. So you have a sprinter who is repeatedly just driving and going, so it just gets nice and developed. So, somebody who is overusing that, we see this a lot in people who are weak in more of the posterolateral or lateral hip. So I'm thinking of someone who comes to me and I lie them on their side and I just do a traditional manual muscle test. So a manual muscle test is just to look at someone's strength. And I say, can you lift your leg up in the air? They're lying on their side and they automatically bring it forward and lift it. They recruit their hip flexor, including the rectus femoris, but that tensor fasciae lata, because they are weak and really are out of tune with their lateral gluteus medius minimus and even glute max. So they're like, yeah, you cannot push them down. And I say, okay, well, let me pull your leg back in line with the body. And it's like, whoop, they go right down. So that is what I see clinically most often is, we tend to use that because it's everything in the front body as a rule, kind of a rule of thumb, we tend to overuse what's in the front body and underuse what's in the back body. This is more of a Western civilization issue, I think. Mm-hmm. So I think her question was overuse of the TFL, right? How does that...
Yeah, overactive, which I really appreciate she said that because it gives us an idea of like the neurological impulse to use a muscle more readily. And that becomes like more of a habitual hardwired thing. So it's overactive doesn't always mean it's strong.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing that's kind of interesting, but it just means that it has been chosen to do more of the work. And in doing that, it might not be strong because it's not meant to be as much of a hip stabilizer like the glute medius. So just because it's trying to kick in and do it, sometimes that can make it overactive, but it's not doing it. It's not performing it. It's like me trying to sing. I can sing, but I'm not a good singer, right? So it's like I can produce it, but I should really stay in my lane a little bit more. I'm a good mover. And so the TFL is like that being a bad singer. It's really not able to do the work that it's meant to do. Like you're talking about, like driving when you're driving those hips, when you're in flexion, when you're sprinting. That's really that's when you get that nice little poppy, that muscle popping. Overactive in this sense, probably that you're referring to, is not necessarily that strong one. It's doing a job that's not really carved out to do well.
Due to the underactivity of the glute med,
and due to the anterior tilt of the pelvis, again, this like when your bones are set up, they are set, whatever position you're in, the scaffolding is going to dictate, its form dictates function. It's going to dictate what muscle is chosen to perform. So if you're tilting forward, your glute max is kind of put on stretch. It becomes quite lazy and really hard to activate because it's not in a good position to extend. And similarly, the glute medius is also, it becomes a lot easier to get sassy with the pelvis and kind of hang out. And that's when the glute medius is not doing its job to really control that movement when we're on one leg, walking or standing even, people will hang out there. So I think overactive TFL, what it could lead to is IT band syndrome. because usually if you're trying to overuse it, it's in this, it's trying to do again, it's trying to sing and it's not meant to sing. So you're hanging out on it. It's like, it's firing, but it's not firing well. And that strain goes down. It's almost like a violin string that's getting pressed on too much. And so I think that's what I would say is the big, beyond just a weak glute medius, is that it really can lead to, for runners, for instance, IT band syndrome. The IT band syndrome is almost always resulting from poor mechanics of the hip, poor hip stability, and then just hanging more laterally, because the glutes aren't performing their job.
And I agree with you about the pelvis too. That anterior tilt of the pelvis is really shifting that axis towards that more hip flexor bias. So if you can neutralize the pelvis, you're gonna take the demand off of that overactive, and then your body will naturally start to draw on some of the less utilized muscles.
Yeah, and the TFL also has a little internal rotation component. So when people are like, say they're marching, if you were going to test your hip flexor strength and pelvis stability, if you tend to really pull that hip up and roll it in, you're probably just trying to recruit the TFL versus some of the, the rectus and the iliopsoas, which are going to get you up to a higher degree, like full range of hip flexion. So when people don't have active full range hip flexion, which many people don't, they're really trying to get it up using that TFL more. And again, at a certain point, it's not really made to get into that in range as much as being helped out with the other muscles of the hip.
Yeah.
So balance it all out, people. That's kind of the rule of thumb. All right, Danielle Winter. I'm curious to know whether it's safe to do LYT style core during pregnancy, first trimester. Well, I'll start off. I'll say, first of all, it always depends, right? It depends on a lot of things. Have you been cleared? Like, have you had any issues? Have you had trouble? Is this like your fourth pregnancy and you've miscarried? Not that miscarriage would have been from that, but mentally, I think you're going to be more feeling more vulnerable. And there's something about doing abs when you're pregnant. They can really make you feel strong, but it can also make you feel a little vulnerable. All that is to say is, if you had a practice of LYT, you can continue it. If your doctor doesn't give you any reason, any contraindications, to the degree that feels great for you, no matter amount of abdominal work you're doing, nothing is going to push out that baby from being implanted. Well, if something was going to release that implanted embryo, it's not going to be abdominals. So let me reassure you of that. But you have to do what feels right for you. If you have any fear or anxiety that's produced by doing something that you don't know, like what's going on, don't worry about it. First trimester, my gosh, all bets are off. I felt terrible in my first trimester with my daughter. I wouldn't have done anything except sit on the couch. I was just trying to get through the day at my PT clinic and not be nauseous all day. So I think it's always, it depends. Or if you feel great and you don't have any restriction and you've been doing LYT, there's no problem. It's really when you get to having more mass there that's you're gonna have to modify. Do you have any other comments about that?
No, I agree with you there. First trimester, we typically don't have the mass that we're worried about, because when you start hitting that second trimester, we're worried about the round ligament, the linea alba. We're worried about what damage we might do later on, to that core abdominal wall. So, we really start to lean away from some of the abdominal work. That doesn't mean you're not working core. We can do do stuff in quadruped, because our core, remember, is not just our abdominal wall. So the beauty of LYT is nothing is written in stone, and we can always adapt. And so we've got great pre and postnatal series on the LYT Daily that you can check out as a nice way to kind of work your way through your pregnancy. And then, just like what Laura said, listen to your body. You're going to know when that when that flexion, that engagement of the abdominals starts to feel uncomfortable, your body will tell you, like, oh, I just had one of our LYT teachers is pregnant over in Europe, and she was said to me, hey, I started to feel this discomfort right below, and I was like, that was your body telling you it's time to stop. And she already had, because I noticed her during our prime class, and she wasn't doing the abdominals, and I was like, good for you, like
Hmm.
you're listening to your body. So, but first trimester usually we're not dealing with that weight there, so it's more of just a how do you feel by other means of the
All the
first
other stuff.
trimester.
Yeah. The fatigue
Oh,
and yeah,
yes.
everything that sets in. Yeah. And I think it's also important to realize, to your point about the round ligament and other things, is ultimately we're trying to also do what's best for our body, not just the baby. It's kind of like nutrition. I mean, the baby is going to take everything. And so we often have to worry about, like, is stuff left over for us? Same with movement. The baby's probably going to be okay. I mean, clearly there are people who do all kinds of stuff, they're running marathons or all that. It's less about the baby and more about, like, what is this doing for your body? And so that's where you want to start really being gentle on yourself. You can still have a strong practice, but you want to think about the sustainability afterwards, that you're not overstretching ligaments, that you're not creating any imbalances as your body definitely starts to shift to accommodate the growing baby.
Yep.
Well, these are wonderful questions. As always, keep sending them our way. You can direct message me at laura.hyman or Kristen at
KB Williams 99.
Yeehaw.
You
As
can also
always, so
write us
fun.
at support@lityoga.com.
Yes, indeed. And as you know, I'll let you say our ending line.
We're pulling for you.
Yes, we are.
Thank you, everyone.